Genesis 10 is in 2 days, and I wanted to go over the ultimate singles bracket and to know what matches you should be excited for on stream, starting in round 2 pools and later. It is going to be an amazing tournament. There are a ton of top talent. Of course, Akola, the #1 player in the world, is not showing up, so that leaves a ton of room for people to make upsets to get farther in bracket, because people don't really upset Akola unless your name is like Spargo or Sonics or Mia. No one else really beats Akola, so without that, we're going to have an entire chunk of the bracket that might be not Akola in top 8 winners. So this is going to be an insane tournament. A bunch of Japanese talent, a bunch of North American talent, a bunch of European talent. So many players are coming here, so let's get into it. But you should also go down into the subscribe button, click it, make sure, turn it from red to gray. Just check it. Some, a bunch of people that watch my channel aren't subscribed. I would appreciate it. Okay, but let's get into it. So for this, I'm only going to be going over the winner side matches because losers is always very unpredictable and scary. So first off, in this pool, we have Sonics should get through Mr. Popo, and then we're going to have Shu versus JDV. I know that Zero Suit is favored against Pac-Man, but I do feel like JDV should be the higher seeded player. JDV might make it here. We might have to see Sonics versus another Pac-Man. Will JDV be able to make the upset of DD? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, DD's really good, so that'll be an impressive little side, but Sonics should make it through either way. Beast Mode Paul has to play Colorado 8. I don't know how Inkling versus Hero or Sephiroth is, and then we have a potential Hero Ditto in Beast Mode Paul versus Aka Kikusu. This is a little rough of a pull for Aka because he's not going to be able to read as fast as Beast Mode Paul. I don't even know if he does, even if they were both reading in their native language, but that's going to be a little bit unfortunate. I wish they weren't playing, but I'm going to watch the hell out of that set. Absolutely, absolutely I'm watching that set. That's exciting. So that'll be a set to look out for if Colorado does not make the upset against Paul. Dabuz should make it through fighting game player Burr into potentially Cosmos. However, Cosmos does have to play Wilds, and Wilds has beat Cosmos before with his Kazuya, so I don't know if Wilds is going to make that upset. If he does, Dabuz should be sitting pretty, but if not, Cosmos has a very good record versus Dabuz, so you never know what might happen. Dabuz might get upset before top 64 winners, which would be kind of insane. This other side, we have Zachary versus Keen. I don't know who Keen is, no offense. And then we're going to have a Snake Ditto and MVD versus Kronos. I know MVD is pretty good at that matchup, forcing Apollo Kage off of Steve the last time they played. And then Zachary versus MVD. I don't know how much pit practice either of these players have versus Zachary. And of course, Zachary has a lot of Snake experience because of all the snakes in Japan. So that can be a little rough for our Snake, little duo over here. I definitely think Zachary is probably going to make it here, although I could see an upset from either of these players over Zachary, of course. Shutone should make it through Luis Fur, but has to run into Big Chungus or Larry Lure. Larry Lure, of course, playing a bunch of characters that do well versus Shutone, in my opinion. And Big Chungus, the Nordics' best Steve. I think he's from Sweden, but definitely one of the strongest Steves in Europe, so that can be a scary set for Larry or Shutone. Like, Shutone has lost to, of course, Akola, but then definitely also Yamanakshin, so could be scary for him. Kurama has to get over Demon, which I think that will happen, and then Hedo has a really rough bracket. The Japanese Bowser having to play Ludo, and then Kurama. But one of Bowser's worst matchups is Mario, so I don't know if Hedo is even going to get through Ludo, let alone Kurama. For the Japanese debut for Hedo, or sorry, the American debut for Hedo, the strongest Bowser player in the world, it's looking like a rough bracket for him. MK Leo should win versus whoever this is, and then we'll have to play a really rough match. He's either going to have to fight Jackal, who beat him at Crown last June, or Justice, the player that took him to Game 5 last Genesis. I know Justice has been leveling up, Jackal's also been leveling up, but Leo's back in form, so we might see Leo just come out on top, but this is a scary bracket path for Leo, in my opinion. Neo should make it through Zenu's Mario, although still a good player, and Ouch has to fight MPG. I don't know the Mega Man experience that Ouch has. I know MPG has Jackal experience because they live in Tri-State, and I'm sure they've played a bunch, so that set can go either way. If Ouch makes it, we're going to have the two Pinoy players face off, and once and for all, we will finally figure out who the best Pinoy player is at a super major, although I know they did play a couple times, and that's kind of just a joke that they riff on themselves, but that should be a really good set. Tweak should make it through Curry Governor, but Goblin has to fight Nico. Roy versus Cloud. Nico, of course, very strong player from Texas, so that can go either way. Tweak should make it through either of them, but, I feel like Goblin could make the upset there for sure. Nico, I don't think so. Tweak does well versus Spargo, and I think that is just really, really difficult. Onin has to fight Kyon. I believe that's the Japanese Link player who recently got top 8 at like the same tournament that SkyJ went to, but that can be a hot set, even though I would favor Onin because I'm assuming Steve does well versus Link, although I don't know that for sure. Then Tarek has to fight Rockman. It says that Tarek should win, but honestly, Rockman's been playing extra crazy recently. One of the most technical Steve players in the United States, probably behind Yofi, but Yofi doesn't really play that often anymore. So that can be definitely a big win for Rockman, a big upset. We might have a Steve Ditto here, but Tarek, of course, if he does make it to Onin, you know, it's just a Steve gauntlet, so I think that's good warm-up for Onin. So if he makes it through Rockman, he should have a good shot. Yauda has to fight Jojo de Hobo, which I think Yauda will win that. I mean, of all the people that have Toon Link experience, it is a Japanese top player because there are plenty of Japanese top Toon Links. Then Crepsile has to play Sho. I know Crepsile is, of course, a great Wario main. I think he also plays Steve, but I think Sho will win that. The Meta Knight player from New York, formerly NorCal, should win that. And then honestly, we're going to get Meta Knight versus Dark Samus, or Samus here, which in my opinion is a great matchup for Sho because Meta Knight just beats Samus, so we might see Sho make it to top 64 winners. Sho, of course, has been doing really well at other majors. I'm surprised he's seeded this low, but yeah, I think he can absolutely do it. Shattuck has to fight Dakpo, should win that. Noe has to fight Pharaoh. That's actually going to be a hot set. Yoshi versus Olimar, I think, is pretty good for Yoshi, but of course, Noe, a very strong player. And either way, I think Shattuck will beat either of these players. I think Shattuck will win versus the Yoshi and also win versus Olimar because that's just a good matchup for Corrin in my opinion. So Shattuck should make it there. Gluttony will make it to this winner semis of his pool more than likely, but then runs into a really hard set in Send or Vendetta. Both matchups in terms of Ryu as well as Ness do very well versus Wario, so Gluttony might struggle here, but of course Gluto has been on another level, you know, recently ranked top 5 in the world, so can one of the best Nesses or one of the best Shoto players beat him? I'm not 100% sure. Cola has to make it past Grayson, which I think will happen, but it is a little bit of a scary set, especially if this was 2 out of 3, even though I assume it's best of 5. And then Taike versus Tavares, Sonic versus Mario. Of course, I love Tavares, but I do think with Taike's US debut, this is going to be Taike's favor. And then Cola will probably beat Taike because he is very experienced against Sonic between Sunito and Wrath. But Taike can make an upset, you never know. The second round of pools is best of 5, so that's okay, good to know. Zomba probably wins his round 1, but then has to fight the winner of Void and Beastly, which I don't know who's going to win that. Beastly, of course, has been playing incredibly well recently, and Diddy Kong has always been kind of a thorn in Void's side, but Void playing super well at the tournaments he went to in Japan, so that'll be a very interesting set. Kaninabe versus Ven. I'm assuming that Fox wins that matchup pretty handily, so I will give this to Kaninabe, although Ven says he's very confident. Tilde has to fight Susu, one of Europe's most technical Steve players, and one of the most technical Steve players at this point in the world, but Falco apparently has a good matchup versus Steve, so I'll believe that. And then we have Tilde versus Kaninabe, which low-key might be Tilde because I know that the Falco players have good success versus the top Fox players, but is Kaninabe going to be ready? I don't know his record versus people like Motsunabe. So that'll be interesting, but let's see who makes that top 64 winner spot here. This is a good pool. Even though this is a good matchup for Game & Watch, I do think this can be a bit of a scary set for Mia against Xavier. Xavier, of course, the US's best or second best Wii Fit. I think it's the best, even though, of course, the one from MDVA, I forget his tag at the moment, but the MDVA Wii Fit trainer is really good, but Xavier, of course, can go in, but I do think Mia is favored there because the matchup is like one of Wii Fit's worst, if not Wii Fit's worst matchup behind Pikachu. Then we have Loaf versus Orion, the French Wolf player. Don't know how this goes. I don't know how much Wolf experience Loaf has, but that should be a hot set. And then either way, I think Mia should win against either of these players. Game & Watch versus Wario, notoriously hard. And then Mia, I think, just also outclasses both of them. So rough pull for our boy Loaf. Big fan of Loaf. Rafflo should make it through Parmesan and then has to play the winner of Neotono versus Lemon. Rough pull for Lemon's Joker, having to fight the world's best Pichu or the world's second best Pichu behind Naitoru Yu. And then Rafflo versus Neotono it's good for a matchup-wise for Neotono's Pichu, but of all the people to have experience against Pichu, the French Palutena will be playing or will have played against the French Naitoru Yu, of course, super strong, so that's a rough pull player-wise for Neotono, but he could make it, not sure. And also I think Neotono has a secondary, but I don't know who it is. Mutes should make it through Maze Beans, although of course Maze Beans is a talented Steve player, but Mutes beat a Cola last year. He should be fine. Mystery has to fight Peanut, which Mr. E I do believe will win that. I know it's a rough matchup for Peanut. They played at Santa Paws. Peanut did take a game, so you never know. now, but Mr. E should win that. And then this lower half of this bracket is kind of hell. You have Meister versus Rocky, Pac-Man versus Game & Watch is a really weird even matchup, and Rocky, of course, has been doing better and better and better, so I could see Rocky making that upset. And then we have Syrup versus Modseye, and Modseye, of course, one of the strongest Pac-Man players from Europe, probably the best one, sorry Etoile, but that should be an interesting set. Syrup probably should win that between his Ness and his Steve, so then we might have Ness versus Game & Watch, or Steve versus Game & Watch, or somehow a Pac-Man Ditto, or that's a crazy section of bracket. This little 3 sets can go many ways. Light should make it through Marvelous Marco, and then we have Flo versus Skinny the Pooh, of course, France's best Roy versus Upset Extraordinaire Skinny the Pooh. That's a good matchup for Mario, so I definitely could see Skinny winning that, and then having Mario versus Light would be super cool, so Fox versus Mario would be a very interesting set, and Skinny the Pooh, of course, is very strong, so Skinny the Pooh low-key can make it to top 64 winners, but I would favor Light in both of these sets just from pure player skill. On the lower half, we have Gact versus Neroz, Godspeed winning Pikachu versus Ness, although Neroz might go his secondary Sonic. Then Luis should beat Smirk, and then Luis has to fight either Gact or Neroz. I think Luis would be favored in both of those sets because Luis has so much Ness experience against Send, and that's also a good matchup for Palutena. And then he's pretty good versus Pika, so I think that Luis would be fine here. More than halfway in, these matches don't stop being exciting. Riddles versus Sure Hyper, one of South Florida's best players, can be an upset, but I would still favor Riddles. Omega versus Zenodo, Diddy Kong does well against both Joker and Aegis, the two characters that Omega plays, so that can be a little bit rough for him, so we might see Zenodo versus Riddles, although I would still favor Riddles. I mean, I know Riddles does well versus Tweak as well, but Omega versus Riddles, low-key, hot set alert. Umeki has to fight Silver. I believe that is a Canadian Zero Suit player, so should be fine for Umeki, although I know Zero Suit does well in that matchup because of the control she has in neutral. Then we have Anjasefan versus Frog. I do think Frog's characters, both Bayo and Steve, do very well versus all the fighting game characters, although Anjasefan, I think, mostly solo Terry at this point, and I don't know if Frog has the Terry experience, so we might have Terry versus Daisy here. We might have Zero Suit versus, again, this little section is going to be very exciting, although I would favor Umeki or Anjasefan to get out of that just because very strong players. Even though Hammer Bro is amazing, special shoutouts to them for making a bunch of upsets recently. Spargo's not going to be one of them, no offense. Cloud versus Ice Climbers is so rough. Then we have Icon versus Monty. Monty, of course, the 3rd best Game Watch player in the world. Can Icon get through that? I'm not 100% sure. I would favor, honestly, Monty in this set. So we might have a Game & Watch versus Spargo. That'll probably go Spargo's way, although you never know with Game & Watch. That character is terrifying. Bloom Forever has to play Anthony Isn't Cool. I believe that will be Bayo versus Cloud. Bloom should win that. Big Boss has to play Spritzy, which, even though Big Boss is favored in terms of seeding, low-key, Spritzy can do it. Spritzy lives in Texas now. Rob Central knows the matchup. I don't know how much Toon Link experience Big Boss has. That can be a big upset. And then Bloom should honestly beat both of these players. I think that, obviously, Bayo does well versus Rob. Bayo, I think, does well versus Toon Link, although she might die for having special lag by all the way across stage by throwing a bomb and then a forward air. You never know, but I would favor Bloom to make it out in winners. Hey, we finally got my pool. So we have Ashimo versus Valor. Valor, of course, a good Sonic player, but Ashimo should win that. I think Ashimo also does well versus the Japanese Sonic player, so should be fine. Then we have Sora versus Chase. Sora could win that, although I would favor Chase just because I feel like Chase understands Steve really well, playing Steve himself, and plays a bunch of characters that I definitely think could abuse some habits, like the Steve player habit type stuff, but Sora could win that. Sora's very strong and had a good Genesis last year. We have Lima versus Ray, Texas Zelda player. I don't know if Lima ever played them, although Lima was originally from Texas, although South Carolina now for school, but Lima should win that. Then me versus Base Mage, which is a pretty good pull for me in my opinion. I like fighting Base Mage a lot. I like fighting Puff. I think both of my characters do very well versus that. And if I win that, I'd have to play Lima, which, I'm down for. I'm down to play Lima. I like fighting Bayo. I think both of my characters, again, do well versus her, although Lima, of course, has been super amazing recently, so I don't think I'm favored in that matchup, but I think I can definitely win that. So, hey, maybe we'll see ESAM in top 64 winners. You never know. Ken should make it through SoCal Young Link Kairos. Nador Yu has to fight MFA, which I'm absolutely thinking MFA is going to win that. It's Olimar versus Europe, and not only is it Olimar versus Europe, it's Olimar versus Europe in a good matchup, so MFA is is going to win that and have to fight Ken, which I don't know how that's going to go. Maybe MFA might go his secondary Falcon in that matchup, because I feel like Olimar versus Sonic is not good for Olimar. Polycog has to fight Sunito. Of course, this is a good matchup for Sonic, but I don't know if Apollokage is going to fall to Sunito. Then we have WebJP versus No-Tag. No-Tag, the South Carolina Mario and Samus player, very strong. Might make the upset on WebJP, although WebJP has been playing fantastically recently, coming off of a 9th place spot at Let's Make Moves Miami, or sorry, not Miami, as well as I meant Let's Make Big Moves in New York. Then WebJP versus Apollokage. Low-key, I think I would favor WebJP here, but I think I would favor Apollokage if it's No-Tag. So this will be a little interesting how this shakes out. And MFA, I could low-key see getting top 64 winners. Just saying. And for the last pool, we have T, who should advance all the way to top 64 winners, having to fight Ryukai, who I don't know who that is, and then either a SoCal Luigi player, Kiarash, in a good matchup for T, or Artsniff, the Steve player, which I think T has enough Steve experience that he should be fine in this aspect. SkyJ has to fight Lucky, hot set, probably one of the best sets of this little section, including me versus Base Mage, which is another good set, no bias. But yeah, that'll be a really interesting set, of course. Piranha Plant God versus Incineroar Legend, that should be really fun. And Shidayuki has to play Machu, Pacific Northwest's premier Rob, and then has to fight SkyJ or Lucky. This is actually a really rough pull in my opinion for Shidayuki, because Inkling has to fight people that will kill him really early with Lucky's Piranha Plant or Incineroar, and having to win neutral a bunch of times. So that can be a little rough for him. I could see him still winning. Shidayuki is an amazing player, but I do think that this can be really scary for him. This is a rough, for your US debut, that is a rough bracket. And with that, let's go into the top 64. Finally, we're all the way here. Sonix is going to have to fight one of the hero players more than likely, and I do think that is his favor just because you run up so fast. Hero doesn't really get a chance to menu. I don't know if Paul's even going to go Sephiroth if he fights him, but if we have Sonix versus Akka, that might be interesting, but I do think Sonix is favored. Again, Dabuz, this might be Cosmos versus Zachary, or Cosmos versus MBD, or Dabuz versus MBD. We're not 100% sure. This is going to be a little interesting how it shakes out, but either way, I think that Sonix has a good bracket path for him to make it at least into winner's quarters, because then he's going to have to fight either Leo, or Shutone, or Kurama, or Neo, or Ouch, which can be a little bit of a troubling trek for him. Again, Leo has a hard bracket in my opinion, between the people in his pool, at least the second round of Justice or Jackal. That's pretty hard for him. And then having to fight the person who is like 4-0 with him immediately after he potentially wins here. So that's really hard for Leo, but we could see it. We could see him still making here. I believe in him. He's been playing super well recently. Tweak Onin. I know that I would definitely favor Onin here, but Onin again might quite not make it there after having to fight Kyon, and I forget the other person he was supposed to fight. I think it was Rockman or Tarek, so Tarek might be here, we never know. Yauda, again, I think this is going to be Sho versus Shattuck, and that's still a good set, in my opinion, for Sho, because that's an easy-to-combo character in Corrin, so Sho low-key might make it all the way to, you know, the round before quarters. Gluttony Cola, if that both shakes out that way, or it might be Send Cola, but if it's Gluttony, this is the CEO Grand Finals rematch, which would be super exciting. So again, this might be Zomba versus Tilde, this might be a different set even, so this is going to be insane. If it's Zomba Tilde, I would honestly favor Tilde Gluto. I mean, I think Tilde won that at the Smash World Tour like finale a couple of years back, so Tilde can honestly make it very far, and then having to potentially fight Sho's Meta Knight or Tweak here. I don't know if they've played, but I'm assuming I would favor Tweak, but you never know. Tilde might low-key just sweep to top 8 winners. You never know. Mia versus Raffalo. Again, I do think Mia would be favored here. Again, this might be Neotono, but Mia should make it at least here. We have to fight Mudace. Mudace's bracket is hell, having to fight the people he does in pools, into Meister, into Mia, and potentially the person he fought in winter semis last year, Light. So rough bracket. If he makes top 8 winners, Mudace once again a god. However, Light has to play Gact first. Again, if Gact makes it, because I know his bracket is a little rough, but that would be Gact's favor, then having to fight the FGC Extraordinaire Riddles if Riddles make it past Umeki, if Umeki makes it past his pool, of course. Spargo and Bloom Forever, that'll be a very fun set. I do think both of them are going to make it there. And then Ashimo versus Lima, again, that might be me and Chase, you never know, but low-key, you know, me into Ashimo or Chase, I'll win that. I'll beat Spargo or Bloom Forever, make it past the Bayo Gauntlet, and then I'll obviously just beat, as long as it's not T, I'll beat anyone in this path, and then I'll just make top 8 winners. Easy peasy. ESAM and top 8 winners. Low-key 65th place incoming, but you know what I mean. It's fine. But yeah, this should be a really entertaining set. Ken versus Apollokage should be entertaining. Apollokage has to do the Sonic Gauntlet between Sunito and Ken, and then T Skyj would be very exciting, although I think T is going to go Kazuya, and I feel like T's style of Kazuya will be better against SkyJ than Riddles's, but you never know. SkyJ has made some crazy upsets. Again, if SkyJ even makes it here, because he has to fight Lucky into, I forget the second person he has to fight, but Shidayuki, so this might be a very interesting part of bracket. So this looks like an incredible bracket, but of course, let's give some extra respect to the top 8 seeds. Sonix is predicted to win the entire tournament, which I do think that might be true, although if he has to fight Tweak here, that will be hard, because I know Tweak did win pretty convincingly in grand finals at Luminosity Makes Big Moves. Mia versus Spargo. Spargo's going to be favored here, but you know, maybe the Steve's going to win, maybe a secret secondary from Mia, or maybe Mia's just going to be player diff and just win. You never know. Mia's an incredible player. Shutone versus Gluto. I'm actually surprised Shutone is seeded top 8 given his recent performances, but Gluto, in my opinion, should win that. I actually don't know if Gluto, I don't know how Gluto, I mean, it's Olimar. I lied. Shutone's going to win that, absolutely. Shutone's going to make it here if this is how the bracket shakes out. Light versus Ken would be Light's favor. I know they did also play, well, actually, Ken did win for the first time at Wash the Throne, so you never know, might be a repeat victory, but either way, this top 8 is going to shake out amazing. I do think Sonix is definitely favored to win the entire tournament with his consistency, although he might just lose to Spargo or lose to Tweak. If this top 8 shakes out, this winner side is going to be really difficult for Sonix, but I do think he can do it, but he doesn't have the Akola person to just win in winner semis, you know what I'm saying? But this will be a very exciting bracket. Of course, Akola not being here means that the bracket is wide open for like the winners, like one person of this winner semis to be completely random or upset person, just because Akola never loses before top 8 winners, so that'll be very interesting. Yeah, let me know down in the comments what matches you are the most excited about. I would appreciate it. Cheer for me. I want to make it far. I do think I'm playing well, and I do think I like my bracket. So I hope it goes well. Let me know down in the comments if you believe in me, or again, what matches you want to see at Genesis. And again, check out the streams. I'm sure there's like a multi-stream or whatever, so go enjoy that. As always, social media and partner stuff is down below, and I will see you all next time. Peace.